imagine getting up on stage and talking in front of loads of people and being massively energized by this absolute buzz feeling, but then getting really drained in a one-on-one conversation with someone. Or, you know, running an event and feeling so good about it and putting all your energy in it, building up a room and energizing everyone else around you, but then needing to spend a week in bed recovering from that experience. This is what it's like running a business as an ambivert. And no one is talking about it. And so this is what I'm doing right now with this video. I want to talk about it. I want to talk about what it's like running a business as an ambivert and show the world that we're not alone. There's more of us out there like this, and we're not weird, by the way. So let's start off by talking about what an ambivert is. So essentially an ambivert is like an introvert and an extrovert in one. They have introverted qualities and they have extroverted qualities. So they like to be alone, but they like to socialize. And you're thinking, that probably applies to a lot of people. And I think it does, but I think it's so misunderstood. And the studies around this are very, very interesting. For example, there was a guy called Carl Moore, and he did a bit of research at McGill University, and he discovered that out of business leaders he's looking at, 40% classified as introverted, another 40% classified as extroverted, and 20% identified as ambiverted. And, you know, it's an interesting breakdown. But recently, there was someone on Diary of a CEO who claimed that 80% of people are ambiverted.
Research shows that more than 80% of people are probably ambiverted, not introverted or extroverted.
Which I don't really know about, because I think that seems like a lot. And I think the problem is with labels is that people can identify with anything. And there are bits of everything that we can relate to. For example, like I said, it's a bit of introverted, bit of extroverted. So it's like, I'm sure everyone loves being around people. No matter how introverted you are, people still crave human connections. Like, introverted people are not all single and they don't want to be single for the rest of their life. Lots of people want human connections, whether that's with a family, a loved one. They still require that human connection. We are humans. And extroverted people, sure, like, love to go out and be the life of the party, but also they get tired. I want to talk about what true ambiverts look like, because for me, it's not just about you love to party and then you get tired, or actually you love your alone time, but you also crave human connection. It's about what you actually require and what energizes you. And so I want to talk a little bit more about what true ambiverts look like and how it affects them running a business. So, as I said, I worry about labels because I think that we're in a time where people love a label. There's a label for everything. It's a diagnosis for everything. And people want to feel like they've got an identity. So by saying you're an introvert, extrovert, ambivert, for example, like, you feel like you belong somewhere. And I totally get that. But what I worry about when it comes to labels is that people then attach themselves to the negative part of that label, whatever it is, a diagnosis, and accentuates those negative things instead of, you know, using their good qualities to overcome these things or being able to recognize that they can do things despite these things. So, you know, I don't like to let labels define me, but I do identify as an ambivert. That's because I think a true ambivert doesn't require social interaction to feel energy, whereas extroverts do. They absolutely need that social interaction. They can't be alone very often. They need that to be energized, whereas I can happily be energized reading a book. I love my alone time. I absolutely love it. But at the same time, that people would suggest that makes me introverted, but no, because I don't see my alone time as a necessity. I just really, really love it. And I do also get energized from other people, and I can do big groups, and I love public speaking. So I do believe that I'm a true ambivert, and I think it becomes really interesting in business. And I mentioned the public speaking thing, but because, for example, being an ambivert, that means that I feel confident getting on any stage, talking in front of big, loud crowds, and it energizes me. I absolutely love it. I can get up and do that, and I have no problems spending a whole day. Like, I run my TEDx events and I do other events through Knobs, and I will spend a whole day doing a whole conference, talking to people, having those conversations, and I will be energized all day. And the comments I get about how much energy I have, that's the extroverted part of me. But the difference is that after one of those events, for example, after my last TEDx event, it took me a week to recover from it. I could barely speak to anyone. I had no energy. I was so drained. And it wasn't just like, okay, I was tired after a normal full day thing. My brain couldn't think. I literally just couldn't talk to anyone. I didn't want to talk to anyone. I didn't want to see anyone. And I felt exhausted. You know, I had that. And then suddenly they were like, well, you need to speak to someone. I had a really important call, had to deal with a client. I was like, oh my God, I cannot turn up to this call feeling this shattered. So somewhere inside me, I had to muster up that strength and that energy. And I was like on fire for this call. My colleague was like, you had so much energy, you did not look sick at all. And I was like, I had to just do that. And then I just crashed out in bed straight away afterwards. And there's that balance. And I think that ambiverts can tap into that, whereas not everyone can. I think that's a skill, but also, you know, you've got to realize where your energy levels lie as an ambivert. I think that people can relate to being both, and people are like, sure, I'm an ambivert though too, because I have both. And this energy level thing is interesting because I think it can also lead to a bit of identity confusion. And I think lots of people who don't necessarily know themselves properly as ambiverts, they can get confused because they don't know what energizes them. They don't know what they need at the time. So do they need to be around other people, or do they need to be alone? Because ambiverts get energy from both, sometimes they feel a bit confused, because I get this a lot. People assume I'm extroverted because they see me in situations where I am being that extroverted side, because I am running events, I am, you know, public speaking. At these things, I have to be extroverted. Like, that's my job, and that's part of who I am, and that part comes out of me because I am also a social person. But they don't see the parts of me where I can be really shy, and actually sometimes when I'm not feeling it, I don't want to network with anyone. I just sit in the corner, and I love to read a book, and I love to just have my alone time. However, people might see that, and then like I've had comments like, oh, you're quiet today. I'm just like, I just want to have some time not talking. Like, is that okay? But then they think that I'm in a mood or I'm being weird because I'm quiet, and I'm not normally quiet. But this is where the ambivert confusion lies, because I like to be quiet sometimes. I like to just sit there and I like to listen. I love listening to people, and sometimes I just don't have anything to say. I want to listen, absorb other people's things, but I just have no interest in speaking. And same as like at certain events, sometimes I just like to listen and just be part of the crowd and mingle and be invisible. Whereas people just be like, oh, you're usually live for the party, is everything okay? And you get that a lot. And I think it can lead to identity confusion if you don't really know who you are. I think for me, the most difficult part about being an ambivert when it comes to business is the decision making. Now, the extrovert side of me is like, go, 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 yeah, let's do this, come on, we can push this, we can do this, and I've got so much energy for things, and I'm like more like taking risks and doing that kind of stuff. But the introverted part of me is a massive overanalyzer. I overanalyze everything, and I'll sit there, go through the data, and like, no, can't do this, can't do this, can't do this, it's gotta be perfect, it's gotta be perfect. And so I'm like stuck in between this like hesitation and action place because of both sides of my personality, and I can see it from both sides of the scale. And I think that makes decisions really, really hard. And I think this is why it's so important to have yourself surrounded by really great people who compliment you, because where I'd be hesitant and I want to overanalyze, and we need people to be able to have the strength to push it out. And likewise, where I want to really, really push it out, you need people to have the strength to be like, no, it's not the right time. You do need good people around you with a balance. And this is why I think that having a really diverse team, and when I say diverse, I mean diversity of thought and like, you know, personalities and this kind of stuff, is so important to be able to help me with things like this. So I've mentioned quite a few difficulties, I think, with being an ambivert, but I think there's so many pros as well, and I feel completely grateful that I am an ambivert because, for example, I have both sides of the benefits when it comes to different types of business. For example, I can sell like an extrovert and strategize like an introvert. Like, I can get up to pitches and I can have these conversations and I can close deals, I can show my knowledge and be confident enough to speak in big rooms. But at the same time, I can sit there and create spreadsheets and strategize and make business plans and all that sort of stuff. And I think that makes it really, really useful to be able to have both of those skills and be able to adapt. Ambiverts are best placed to be able to do that because they can kind of switch from their personalities. And I think adaptability is a huge, huge, huge thing in business because it's never consistent and you need to be able to adapt to different environments. And I think that, and I think also when it comes to empathy, the introverted part of me is a really good listener, but the extroverted part of me can talk and lead by example. So therefore I can do both, and then that helps me be more empathetic towards people and handle situations a bit better. So I think that being an ambivert definitely has pros and cons when it comes to business, but I think it's a lot more difficult than people think. And I think ambiverts are sort of the forgotten types. There's a lot of content out there to help people who are introverted. And, you know, people say that extroverted have all these great things, but I think that extroverted people also can burn out more because there's such high energy. But I think with ambiverts, it is really tricky and you're sort of like toying with yourself with it. And I think the key thing when it comes to an ambiverts, like running a business, is knowing where your energy lies. Constantly reviewing what drains your energy, what gives you energy, because it's different and in different situations. For example, I could get energy from talking to people at an event and being really motivated, and this could lead me to maybe create content like this. This is a different type of energy. But I also need energy to be able to make business plans and, you know, as I said, financial projections, which is a different type of energy. It's much quieter, but I need to be productive, I need to be focused. I do believe that ambiverts can have the most balanced life, but I also think it can be a bit confusing at times. So if you're feeling confused, you're not the only one, and I'm always happy to help give any advice around what it's like being an ambivert and running a business, because it's not as easy as everyone thinks. But I hope you found this useful, and I'll see you in the next video.